Before 1870, the word Germany was basically a euphemism. There was no such thing as Germany. You had well over 100 kingdoms, principalities, duchies, and little fiefdoms that all made up what was previously the Holy Roman Empire. You didn't, in the 1870s, you didn't even really have a Holy Roman emperor anymore. But Napoleon III of France launched the Franco-Prussian War against the Kingdom of Prussia. And many of the Western kingdoms, including Bavaria and Baden and Württemberg and Hanover, sided with the French, unfortunately. Otto von Bismarck was King William's commander-in-chief of the army, of the Wehrmacht, and smashed Napoleon III. And then what was called the Second Empire was created in 1871 after the victory at Sedan. Then you suddenly have one single Germany with its capital in Berlin and under William I. Prussia was a Lutheran kingdom, and the Lutheran Church came to dominate all of Germany. The Catholic Church fell very hard during that time. Pope Leo XIII became extremely popular among German Catholics in the United States because he undertook very extraordinary measures to rescue the Catholic Church in Germany. You have to remember something about Pope Leo XIII. He was the very first pope in 1,000 years who was not also the king of the Papal States. Pope Pius IX, his immediate predecessor, who was the longest serving pope in the history of the Catholic Church, he was the last pope who was also the king of the Papal States, or the Paternam Petri, as it was known. And when Garibaldi defeated the Papal States Army, literally the Paternam Petri ceased to exist, and there was no. Today we have this. The Vatican City is a sovereign state and is a member of the United Nations. For a fairly long period of time, the Papal States simply ceased to exist, and the Pope was not even a sovereign leader. So Pope Leo XIII had quite a lot on his plate. First of all, he had to reestablish the papacy as a sovereign entity and to have other nations recognize him. The German Empire didn't recognize him for a very long time. But he dealt successfully to re-energize the Catholic Church, both in Austria-Hungary and in the German Empire. As a result, he became extremely popular with German Americans, particularly here in New York. Annually in the United States and throughout the world, you have a collection that's called the Peter's Pence. Peter Paul Hensley and a group of other people started that concept and raised a purse of $50,000 in the middle of the 1880s, which doesn't sound like a lot of money today. But if you multiply that by roughly, 20, you get an idea of how much money that is in today's terms. Would be like raising maybe $10 million in today's money.
Wow.
Hensley and a group of German American business people went to Rome to give this money to Pope Leo XIII to encourage him. Pope Leo turned around and handed the money back to them and said, what I want you to do is I want you to find, in order to help Germans to acclimate themselves and to be able to succeed, German Catholics to succeed in their transition to life in the United States, I want you to found a society to help them. Peter Paul Hensley had already created what's called the St. Raphael Society, named after the Archangel Raphael. He's among many things, the Archangel Raphael is the patron saint of travelers, and particularly pilgrims. If you read the book of Tobit, of course, the Archangel Raphael leads Tobias on his journey, on a major journey of his early life. In those days, you didn't have the EU, you didn't have the European Union. When you went from Luxembourg to Belgium to France to Spain, every time you went to a different country, you had a different checkpoint. You had to have visas, you have to have exit permits, you had to have entry permits going across every single state line. Even within countries like the Austro-Hungarian Empire, in order to cross from Hungary to Austria, you had to have a visa. The St. Raphael Society was created in Europe to help primarily poor people. If you were wealthy and you wanted to ride on the Simplon Orient Express, you just, paid your tickets and you had a lawyer handle everything for you. You had a big packet of entry and exit visas, and you had all of this sort of stuff. You handed it to the porter and he took care of it. But if you didn't have that, if you weren't wealthy and you didn't, have that, a lawyer to be able to handle that for you, there was the St. Raphael Society, and they helped, many, many people to negotiate the many different the border crossings that had to be made in order to travel from one place to another in Europe in the 19th century and well into the 20th century. The Nazis decimated the St. Raphael Society in Europe because they helped enormous numbers of people. I'm not really sure they're not like Raoul Wallenberg, who really was very active helping Jewish people. I can't say that the St. Raphael Society, I don't know what the numbers were like, but they helped an enormous number of
Right.
of poor people, particularly political dissidents, anyone who was out of favor with the Nazis. The St. Raphael Society helped them to be able to escape Germany, and the result being that 80 to 90% of their members ended up in Auschwitz. Hitler really decimated the St. Raphael Society. We're the only chapter left in New York in the United States. The whole mission of the St. Raphael Society in Europe has changed today. The Raphael's Werke is how it's known in Germany today. Raphael's works, and it's a system of youth hostels that's spread out across Europe. We're not a hostel. I wouldn't describe us as a hostel.
More of a hotel.
We're really a traditional, American hotel. We're not for profit, and we're a charitable organization in the sense that our modern mission is we welcome travelers with we operate fairly close to our cost levels. Our rooms, we have a certain break-even point. We don't charge much above that for our guest rooms. And we also have charitable programs.